Hey everyone, this is S and Pratt, and it's the best time of the month again. It is time for the August 2019 Patreon exclusive video. This month I experienced the highest quantity in sales, the largest frequency in sales for the year. That's pretty typical. I remember mentioning back in winter, you usually have a cutoff around Black Friday, Cyber Monday with retail. And of course, you still have sales in December, January, and February. They typically just slow down a bit. They start to pick up in the spring, and here we are full throttle. Of course, it's just my experience with what I sell. It might not be universally true for everyone and all of retail, but I've had this similar pattern for years now where I start to see an incline in the summer, into fall, slow down in the winter, and then starts to pick up again. So this month for sure had the highest quantity of sales so far. The sales section is probably going to be a good 5 to 10 minutes because I pretty much sold every type of item and also in a larger quantity compared to say 3 months ago. So that's the general overview for the month for general sales patterns. So getting into modern, there are a few things to really do a deep dive into. Number one, we're going to talk about distribution, but because a lot of new patrons have asked me about Japanese distribution, I'll cover that in its entirety. But I'm going to start with the cards. So we're going to start with the movie Mewtwo, Ancient Mew reprint. Very popular right now. They're having a moment right now in Japan. And a few patrons asked me about them. What do you think it's going to be? In general, it's going to be like a Red's Pikachu type deal. Very low cost, however, very popular. So it's something that I think will sell. Recently when I get into my purchases, I bought a ton of English Ancient Mews, 300 Ancient Mews recently. So I could buy a ton of those, and it's probably going to be a low margin item, but it's like lipstick, nail polish, or makeup, something like that, where, that $5 to $10 category, there are so many buyers. I think there's a business analogy or example where it's the price of lipstick is always a target to hit everybody, to sell seemingly an infinite amount of that item. So that's probably what's going to be. Just like Red's Pikachu, where it's nice art, popular, but it's not rare at all. There's a lot of it to go around. So that's what the movie promo is going to be like. It's probably going to sit a little bit above the grading costs. Again, if you can get some of these cards $25 PSA10, even $30 PSA10, you save yourself a bunch of time. If you just want the one card PSA10, that's the best option in my opinion. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, I could save $5, maybe $10 if I do it myself. I'm just speaking for myself. That's so much time at this point. But if it works for you, more power to you if you want to go that route, because I'm sure most of them will be mint because they're brand new. So if that's easier for you, but also it's just basically a win-win. If you want the card, it's going to be low cost. That's the message I'm trying to throw at you. But nonetheless, those cards are like Red's Pikachu. The only different one I would add there that a couple of you guys asked me about was the Charizard that comes with that tin. So far, it looks like it's still just a Japanese card. You never know with English. Usually, it's supposed to be 2 or 3 months, and they give it to you. With Shiny GX, it was almost a full year, and we're still waiting on it. It's going to come out soon, so you never know with that type of thing at this point. But as it stands, that Charizard is definitely a tier above in price point and rarity. Keep in mind, we're way down here on the mountain. Those Ancient Mews are the ground floor of the mountain. So therefore, keep it in context that Charizard is rarer, a little bit pricier, $30 give or take right now. But it's not going to be as common as that Mewtwo card. I think it looks nice, but it's right out of the gate. So we don't have any real data on it outside of its initial sale price. But I would just throw it at you. It's a different level of rarity. It's not going to be that, gravel pit of, Ancient Mew or Red's Pikachu. So getting into the distribution aspect, there's a lot to talk about here. I got a lot of information to give you from Japanese distributors. A lot. So for the people who asked me, I had a couple new patrons this month who came to me and said, hey, I'm looking to buy directly from Japan like everybody is right now. Can you hook me up with a distributor? Even if I wanted to, Japanese distributors are literally not accepting any new Pokemon clients, period. They're not taking in any new businesses. Doesn't matter how much money you want to throw at them. They don't care because they can't fulfill the orders for the current businesses that they have. And they're very strict about it. There are people, if you're not ordering or paying within 2 to 3 month window, you're out of here because there's just a never ending line right now of people trying to get in. So they are not accepting any new businesses. More specifically, that pack or that new set that's coming out where we only have the stock image of the pack, it's all gold with the Ring of Energies. there were, for my distributor, which is one distributor, there's multiple in Japan. So this is one distributor for one product, one order for one product. They received $3 million for that set. That's their order. They don't think Pokemon's going to fulfill that. For example, with Remix Bout, I did 20 cases, I received 8. And I got 2 bonus ones that are literally in the mail as of making this video, because, you know, they felt bad because they didn't even fulfill half my order. So there's one data point. With this new set, $3 million, one set, one order, one item, one brand, one distributor, $3 million. That's what they're receiving right now, just an exact number that they gave me, and they don't think they're going to fulfill those orders. Also, with English, we're seeing a little bit of the similar thing where they're hedging it more, they're throttling it more. I know a business ordered 200 cases of the Hidden Fates. They're like, you know, Generations, when they did those mythic boxes. I think that's a similar thing they're doing. Anyway, they're these type of retail boxes that they ordered 200 cases of. They received 18. So, you know, that's a huge cutoff. So I don't know if English is finally, you know, understanding that you don't want to just print everything, but nonetheless, Japanese gave me that number that they're explicitly not doing anything. Any new Pokemon business, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you're, you know, the wealthiest Pokemon company out there or the Pokemon business out there, they don't care. They're not accepting new clients as it stands. And moving forward, I don't think this is going to change. How it's working right now in Japan is pretty similar to what I told you before. They are doing an initial wave. They can't fulfill those orders, and then they pepper in like a case later. I got offered an option to buy Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, SM2, SM3, I think, all the way to Crimson Invasion. One more case of each. So you're not really getting a reprint. You're getting more of like a backlog or just one extra case or two here and there. So that's the current setup right now. I don't see that changing at all. Japanese market is thriving. A lot of these orders are coming from Japanese businesses. There's just no magic bullet right now. Your only option, as someone who was asking me, is either buy from the cheapest option on eBay, or if you can buy from like a Miyami or those Japanese stores. Usually you can only do 6 boxes. That's the only real answer right now. There's no magic bullet. Even the ones on eBay, the Japanese people, I can't compete with their margins. The opportunity cost is you pay less, you wait about a few weeks to a month to get it. With me, you pay more, you get it in 2 days. So, you know, that's the opportunity cost, but that's the current state of affairs for distribution. Absolutely zero entry whatsoever. It's like trying to get a response from Amelia Clark on Instagram. It's not happening. So it's not going to happen right now. I'll update you, of course, if anything changes. So segueing into vintage, I wanted to update you on the stolen SSB. So I put that video out for you guys first, and then of course it went viral to the point, you know, at the time my Japanese distributor sent me an article from Japan in Japanese about the stolen SSB, which was great because, you know, it really got worldwide exposure. However, because it is most likely with someone who's not in the hobby, it's really hard to get a lead on who owns it. You know, if it were in the hobby, I think we could find a pattern or suggestion or something and isolate it. With all of the issues that are in hobbies, like the immaturity, drama, whatever you want to say, at the end of the day, things happen very quickly. They regulate very quickly. So this one's outside the hobby. There's no real trace, no scent to pick up on, you know, no hint of who owns it. All we know is that at AirMax, it was bulk signed, like they will sign for like 100 packages or something like that, like a pallet of packages. And that's the last update. So I think it's on AirMax. I don't know how much. Me and the buyer are very close. The rightful owner, are very close. I don't know how much they want me to publicly share, but I can say that it's most likely going to be basically getting the money back through a lawsuit. Of course, they want the card. Everybody wants the card because it's a piece of history, but that's where it is. There's no real major update, unfortunately, outside of it went viral and everyone talked about it, but there's no, you know, because it's outside the hobby, it's going to be finding like a needle in a global haystack. So that's where it is for the SSB. Very unfortunate, but also I will keep you updated if there is an update. So getting into vintage, I know everybody wants to talk about it. What the hell is going on right now with sealed boxes? This is pretty much going to be most of vintage and later on in the video as well. Vintage sealed products in a drought right now for a couple of reasons. You have things like Rusty, the Charizard Authority, doing all that stuff he's doing with Unlisted Leaf and the mystery boxes. I like Rusty. He's a nice guy. He's very honest. Mystery boxes are straight ass. I don't support them. I don't endorse them. I think it's why people don't take Pokemon seriously. But regardless, it's happening just like waffles, raffles, all this stuff right now. There's a lot of inorganic processing for how things are sold that's becoming very popular on social media because, again, social media is the sewer of this hobby. I know there are great people on social media. I know there are plenty of reputable businesses on social media. When I say that it's a sewer of the hobby, I mean there's no regulation, so this type of stuff can fester without any type, again, no regulation, nothing to say, hey, guys, you're selling this product inorganically. So that's why you're seeing such an uptick. There's so much inorganic processing of gamesmanship where it's like, oh, we have 20 cards, we have 20 packs, whatever it is, and we're going to do these slots where you pay for a slot, and you're going to buy this through this inorganic process for an item rather than saying, hey, I want that card, I'm going to buy that card. That's very organic. So that is a huge reason why this is happening. Because of this new thing on social media where everyone has to go through this process, this gamesmanship thing is really hot right now. It's just expediting the sales and the movement of these packs, boxes, you name it. Also, you have outside investors consistently buying. You got to understand boxes hit the widest pool. They hit everybody. Serious collectors like them, casual collectors like them, cross collectors like them, investors like them from other hobbies. They're so easy to understand. You just buy a box, you get a box. Super simple stuff. It hits everybody. There's every factor right now, and then new factors like the inorganic thing I mentioned are all entering the hobby or in the hobby, and they're causing these prices to increase. My advice would be when you see jungle, fossil, rocket start to become scarce, that's the canary in the coal mine. That's a sign that things are becoming very dry, and that's where we are. All those boxes have increased, every single one of them. Pretty much every box has recently increased in the past month or so. I don't know how this is going to change. It's very difficult to gauge. Right now, we're in an uptick, so there's no way to say where's it going to plateau. We haven't seen a plateau. The thing I want to say is that new prices, there's always an establishment when the new high price starts to hit an inflection point. So, for example, when I started doing videos, I think Fossil was like at 800, first ed Fossil. And, before this month, it was sitting like 1,500, somewhere in there. So it doubled in price with the same availability that it had at 800. And that's the important thing I want to highlight. So we haven't had that plateau yet where the new price hits with the same availability from the earlier price. We haven't experienced that yet. So right now we're in the uptick. We're on the climb. I really don't know when it's going to settle. It was pretty stable for the past few months. Like I mentioned in my other videos, I was like, yeah, sealed product's sitting right now. It's stable. I don't know, what it's going to do. It's not like that right now. Right now it's accelerating. A couple new patrons asked me, can you give me a list of an overview for WotC boxes? And the list is just going to be base set, ? Fossil, ? Because it is not stable right now. It's still moving like this. So that's the overview on the drought. Now, when I mentioned the inorganic aspect, ultimately, it's not going to be something that goes away soon. I don't think it'll ever go away because, again, there's no regulation on social media. But at the end of the day, there's no supply available right now that's going to slow that process down. So that's what it is. It's probably going to be this way for the next couple of months. You need supply to slow it down, basically. So I'm waiting to see that. Currently, you have, let's say, Jungle Box. I've been watching those. It's like 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. Some above 3,000. This is like crazy because before it was 2,000. Or give or take a little above $2,000. But the point is that until that supply hits consistently, we're on the incline as it stands. So that's the overview for boxes. I'll talk about them later in overrated, underrated, spoilers. But the other thing for vintage are Japanese promos. I want to talk about this because I think there's a pattern happening or emerging right now that people aren't noticing. Japanese promos, I would say mostly like mid-2000s and back, especially the golden era, are holding very well. They are sustaining value very well. They are either, at worst, they're holding a price, if not incrementally increasing. I'm talking Masaki's, Not Awake, Not Awaki, however you pronounce it. CD promos, there's another one I'll get into with sales. Basically, majority of my sales, Game Boy and McDonald's, go down the line. This stuff is not only selling consistently, it's hitting and holding at a certain price, and some of them are increasing, which is what you want to see. Now, my opinion on why that's occurring, Japan dictates the ground floor more than ever. If you go back like 5 years, you had a lot of flippers whose business model was buy stuff from Japan under market value, flip in the U.S. for above, at market value. Now Japan dictates that ground floor, so doing that blind business model is really difficult. So you have Japanese people saying, okay, this is what we're going to hold it at. Japanese people in general tend to be more patient. They're not as flippable. They're the opposite. At Worlds, when a Japanese winner wins a trophy, it's usually gone for good. It goes into the Indiana Jones archive, where if an American wins it, you have a higher probability it's going to be sold. So that's true also for, the lower end of cards. Because there's accessibility now for grading in Japan, they dictate that ground floor, and we're seeing that. I'm seeing that with fan clubs like Masaki's players cards as well, players promos. They have not dipped in a long time. They've been like this now consistent for a couple years. They have not dipped. So that's a good sign. And again, it's because the Japanese are dictating the ground floor, where even I would say, like, when players promos come to mind, I remember seeing a guy flip them about 3 or 4 years ago, and I had another Instagram person message me say, hey, these PSA 10s are at like $25 each. And I'm like, dude, I've been selling those like at $75 all day. And of course, once they cycled off eBay, I sold out of all those and had to buy more, then sold out of all those. So back then you had people flipping them and getting these terrible prices, but now Japan increased the cost, so it's holding. So that's a new pattern to keep an eye on. It's good, and also I think it's a example of how Japan really sustains its market right now. Japanese is the A+ student for the hobby. That's just the answer. English is like the trust fund baby who has never earned their way and rides the coattails of the big daddy Japanese. And just Japanese is doing everything right now in modern and vintage. You can't complain. They're sustaining the market in a good way. So that's what's happening right now for vintage. Box Drought, Japanese promos are holding. Keep an eye on those two things because they're major patterns that we are knee deep in. So one other thing to talk about before we get into sales. Oh, man. A lot of people are asking me about Worlds, and I just want to give you a quick overview on that. Because some of the patrons are like, hey, you're going to be at Worlds, I want to meet you. I am in a position now where I basically am on the fence, like, maximum. I've picked pedals with this, like, will I go, will I not go, will I go, will I not go? It's going to be a game time decision. I don't even know at this point if I'm going to go. I had a trip planned. I canceled it because it was too long. Because of some recent things that happened, because of timing, personal things like that. I couldn't take that much off. If you saw Rudy's video, it's very similar. I can't take weeks off because I'd just be way behind in everything. So it's a game time decision for Worlds. That's probably how it's going to be here on out. For the people who ask me, I'll message you privately. But if I do go, it's going to be brief. It's probably going to be like maybe a couple days, maybe like the weekend of. That's what it'll be if I go. But as right now, it's a 50-50 chance. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm waiting to hear from someone. And if I hear from them and coordinate with them, I'll go. But if you saw Rudy's video, it's a similar situation I'm in. Of course, Rudy has way more subscribers. He's got the blue check mark. He's the real deal. But it's a similar position where I don't have anonymity anymore. So I can't just peruse Worlds like I could in the past. And as much as I love to see everyone, and I love hearing from people like, hey man, I like your channel, I like what you're doing, it really like makes me feel good and a little bit like nervous at times too. I'm like, whoa, like this many people watch this stuff. But that's the good side of it. The cost is that it takes up so much time, and everyone, I can't just go there and enjoy it like I used to. So if I make the decision, I'll message you guys, the people who did message me about Worlds. And if you are one of those people who were interested in meeting up, feel free to message me at any time. And I'll let you know when I know. So there you go. That's the quick synopsis on Worlds. Now getting into sales, what everybody is here for. There's going to be a lot of sales. I'm going to be looking right here the whole time because there's so many things to go through. I'm going to start with the boxes. We'll get into the graded stuff. So boxes this month, the most recent set was Remix Bout. I sold, I think, at this point, over 40 of them. Let me grab it. Let me grab a box out of sight here. So this is what the case looks like. Holds 12 boxes. I think I sold 4 of these cases. I have 4 more, 2 more coming in the mail. I'll probably keep at least 2 cases for myself, sell the rest of them. I've been selling them steady at $75, nothing less. And they've sold very consistently. I had someone message me when I did that opening. They're like, hey, dude, why are you selling yours at 75 when I can get them from Japanese guys or whatever from less? And I just told them, because I'm giving a different service. I can get that to your door in 1 week, basically. You order it on Monday, it'll be at your house within a week. where if you order from Japan, it takes more time, opportunity cost. That's why these sell a little bit higher because they're stateside. But at the end of the day, that's the sales data point within this month, over 40 boxes. Miracle Twin, I sold a case. CP6, I really slowed down. I've mentioned this before. I put the price at $200 each, and I sold, I think, 1 or 2 at that price. I think I have maybe a handful left. When that listing is done, when those sell, it's done for good. I'm going to wait years for another increase to list anything else because those boxes are not available. Again, talk about the Japanese floor. You can't buy those in high quantity. This is probably repeat for most people. You can't. There's no magic bullet for CP6. So I'm going to, once all those sell, it's off my eBay for years. Similar to PokeCune, similar to Boxy. I'm just waiting with Boxy. I'm going to do the same thing with Shiny GX. Whatever my Shiny GX ends at, I've been selling those consistently, no less than $100, because that same thing I mentioned with Remix Bout, where you get that, that immediacy in shipping. Once the current stock sells out on my eBay, it's going to be gone and down for years. So, again, just talk about sales and strategy altogether, because I know that's what you want to hear. Now, getting into some of the graded stuff, we had everything sell from 1996 to 2019. Everything's been selling right now. Japanese base, sold numerous Pikachu's PSA 10. I think the lowest was maybe 65 or 75, somewhere in there. That's about the average price. I had Mega Tokyo Pikachu's from $50. These are all PSA 10. $50, $60, $75. I had Versus cards, you name it, PSA 8, PSA 9, PSA 10, which that's also good information. The 7s and 8s are selling. I talked about this before. If you get a PSA 7, $25, guaranteed near mint copy. If you want it for your binder, if you just want a graded card, it's hitting that audience now. There's a demand for that. There's a need for that. Even for me with Magic, I'm doing a lot of alpha. I got some alpha here that just, outside of Time Walk, like some of these alphas just came in the mail. And, I've been putting these together for a binder, show a few more of them for the Magic guys out there. And basically these range anywhere from, here's a great example, 6.5. This is what's happening right now in Pokemon. You can get this PSA 7, crack it out, which is what I'm going to do with this guy. Crack it out, put it in the binder, getting a lot of 7 sales, getting a lot of 8 sales. So versus McDonald's cards, I've had 8s. Even some of the old stuff, Koros going for 7s and 8s. Again, 25 to maybe 50 for like the bigger cards. All day in that range. That's something everybody can spend, even a kid. Then we have our Shiny Ho-Ohs. This is a good example for people who dabble in modern. English Shiny Ho-Oh. Sold out of all of them. 8, 9, 10. 10s were doing 40 to 50. All of them. I had 5 of those go. One went to India. They're going everywhere. They're flying all over. Ho-Ohs flying worldwide right now. So, good news for modern. They are selling. Not big bank busters. Not going to do a lot of money, but they do still sell, which is a great sign. Psyduck Scream, PSA 9, sold 2 of those for 40. McDonald's Pikachu 10, 120, sold another for 130. Diglett Air 75 PSA 10. I think that one's a little underrated. I took away the offer option on that and Naked Misty. Naked Misty has been just gone. I had 9 sell, 10. I probably had 3 or 4 10 sell between $150 and $200 each. I took away the offer on that one as well. I had a guy from Belgium pestering me like, "Hey, can I get this for $150?" And I checked that no one's under like $175, and even those guys aren't shipping to Belgium. So I'm like, no, I'm just removing the offer option. Iconic card, has history, has unique art, has very unique art. So that one's been doing very well. Maybe you can attribute it to a Detective Pikachu re-entry. Who knows? Nonetheless, it's sold. There's been an uptick on it. Asubikata Doug Trio, PSA 10, $60. The CD promos, man. The CD promos, PSA 10, are... I sold 2 sets in a week for $300 each. In a week. That's crazy. Crazy liquidity. Those are cards that are always out there. It has one of the largest pops. Of course, keep in mind there are certain old businesses from like the 90s, 2000s who probably have like stock of that in a warehouse, or not a warehouse, a storage facility, and it's probably gone forever. But at the end of the day, those are selling like crazy. I have one more set that has a sequential serial number for the cards. Like all 3 of the PSA serial numbers are right next to each other in line. So that one I put up a little higher. Just had someone message me about it today. Selling very well. If you have those cards, they're pretty much liquid right now. So CD sets been selling well. Game Boy promos have been selling very well. Mewtwo specifically. I sold 3 Mewtwo's. PSA 10, $150 each, very fitting for the Pokédex number. Raised the last one because I only currently have one more in stock. And I raised it up a bit because, again, the market, I had the lowest price on the market, so I'm going to raise it up because I only had that one left. Just like I was mentioning earlier, vintage. Holding a price, if not increasing. Some of those Mewtwo's used to go about 100. Now, again, they're holding a price, increasing because Japan is the A+ student. Also, had some more obscure sales, like a Jigglypuff 1996, the Asobikata one. It's like the original singing Jigglypuff with the marker. PSA 10 sold for $400. Actually, a few people on Discord asked me about this one, and I was like, Patreon, I'm going to talk about it only in Patreon. And that one sold for $400. Pretty solid, like mid-range, low to mid-range sale. I had 2 of the first edition base set starters sell, PSA 10. So I had a lot of Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, PSA 10. I had it listed like at 800, right under 800. And I sold 2 of them this month for 700. Maybe, I think one was maybe a little above 700, like 710. And then the month before, I think I mentioned in the other video, I sold another set of those. So I'm at the point now where I think I only have like a few of those sets left. I currently haven't relisted it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. If I do relist it, I might bump it. But the point is, that is selling very fast. In fact, I had a guy message me. The only time I'll respond to messages on Instagram, right now I have like 30 unread messages. So the only time I'll respond to those if it's either Patreon or someone's asking about a sale, because I don't have time for anything else. And someone asked me and said, hey, what do you do for the first edition starter lot and Naked Misty? And I said, I've been selling those first edition starters for about 700. Literally 3 to 4 hours later, it sold. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the guy from Instagram. And I look at it, they're from different countries. And I'm like, hey, sorry, man, it sold. And he's like, you weren't kidding. They're popular. So that stuff is selling very well, at least in my experience. Again, these sales might also include like SM Pratt, exposure, name, brand, whatever you want to say, but nonetheless, there's the data. Do what you want with it. Also, a big sale that wasn't mine, that I actually wanted to be the buyer of, happened in Japan. So there was a TMB number one trainer, PSA 10, that sold for $30,000 in Japan, and it sold quickly. Something of that price point to sell that quickly, especially in Pokemon, is impressive. And it was in Japan. I don't know who ended up with it. I'm not sure if you're aware of Endel Games. I've helped a couple patrons before. One individual bought a Trophy Kangaskhan from them. Another one bought some like mid-tier prize cards from them. And basically it's a Japanese store, an actual store. Not one of these Wii businesses, an actual business that owns like a very large quantity of Magic. They dabble in everything. And they snap purchased that TMB because they have access to it in Japan. It was on Yahoo. I think they graded it or someone graded it for them. It was on their store and it sold, I think, like within a week. I was trying to get in contact with them, but I didn't do it in time because I would have bought at that price. Early bird gets the worm in Japan. I don't know what type of birds they have there, but whoever got it, got it. I don't know where it ended up. Nonetheless, there's a data point. Keep in mind, for people who think that is a record price, it is not. As you know, with the SSB, it sold for $60,000. And even that isn't a record price. I can't tell you the exact price because there's a contract involved, but those cards are something that I would snap by all day at $30K, especially with that grade. That's a no-brainer for me. The next one that'll appear with that grade or even that card alone might be years from now. So there you go. Pretty historic sale, but it flew under the radar again because it was Japanese. If it were on the open market, honestly, whoever owns that now could put it on the open market and almost double their margin. So there it is, $30K. Now getting into my purchases, I mentioned earlier, Ancient Mews. I've been buying those. About 300, I think, is where I'm at, and I'll probably hold off. I think that's 300 might be enough for now. So I bought a lot of those. I bought another Tropical Wind. Actually, it's back. Let me be a cool guy and show it to you. It just opened it up back here. I actually have a box break video that you'll see eventually, where I open this up. I open up the package, and yeah, you'll be able to see the exact card. But there you go, Patreon first. Love that card. As you know, it's one of my favorite artworks. Just love everything about it, the release, everything. So bought another one of those. Shining cards. Bought some Japanese Shining cards because they had the right price. They were mint condition. One thing I want to tell you, because people are always asking about strategy as well. With Shinings and Gold Stars, I just have a row of graded Shinings right now. in storage. I have a row of graded gold stars. I have a row of ungraded and ungraded shinies and gold stars. So the pro tip I wanted to give you is that, like, I could take these boxes and sell them at $75 a piece. Shiny GX sell them at $100 a piece. Some people are selling shiny and gold star cards at that price. Doesn't make sense to me. I think there's a different value breakdown, at least an acquisition difference between a gold star and a shining card and modern product. So that's the advice I would give you. Even if you're not a business, just work a little bit of overtime to hold on to that shiny or gold star. Shiny and gold stars aren't your trophy cards, of course. They aren't your tropical winds, but they are the chase cards. They're solid cards, and I think it's criminally underrated when you're selling them at $100. I think you're losing value doing that. Even if there is profit, even if you're making good margin, I don't think the value's there to sell. Again, my opinion, but I think at $100, it's just worth holding, when you're in that price point. Same for first edition base stuff. Like right here, I bought a couple of these Pikachus because they're at a great price, PSA 10, with that eBay coupon. And these are great examples where I'm just like, this stuff is way too low. Way too low for its value. I know there's a lot of it out there right now, same with the Shinings or whatever it may be. But again, just work a couple extra shifts, just work an extra day to just hold those cards. Like, seriously, that's what I would be doing if I were 9 to 5. I'd just be like, screw it. I'm just going to work an extra shift just to hold those cards. So that'd be my advice. The threshold's so low. Now, if you're talking like, of course, thousands of dollars, different ballgame. You're entering different territory. But because the cost is so low on those Shinings, again, just being transparent in my strategy, I'm just buying that stuff and holding it. That's typically my go-to move. But especially with that stuff like that, I'm like, there's no incentive for me to sell. Even if it's a 10 and it gives me like $500 or whatever, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. Also, I bought some Not Awake cards. Natawaki, Pikachu. Really like that card. I probably have maybe 10 of those right now. The Pikachus ranging from like 8 to 10 in grade. I have a lot of base unlimited packs I bought. Actually, for the guys who are interested in doing this, I had a patron message me and said, hey, there's someone who listed a open box of unlimited base cards or unlimited base packs, and I can't afford it. I don't have the capital for it. Are you interested? It was priced under market. Someone just wanted to get rid of it. Bought it all, great price because that person gave that to me. I threw them a pack for free. And I'll always do that. If you want a finder's fee, if you want cash, or you want, a piece of the product, if I buy like that packs, I'll throw you a pack or whatever it is. So, for people who have items that they can't buy and they don't have the capital for, they're just not interested in, and it's something like that, where it's under market or you just, whatever. For whatever reason, you think it's a good deal, always message me. If I end up buying it, I'll definitely, compensate you. So that's what happened with those base unlimited packs, and just throwing that little lure out there. It's a win-win for everyone involved. It's like, if you see something you can't afford, let me know. I'll buy it. I'll give you a finder's fee. Free money. So there you go. That's what I have for purchases. Now, getting into overrated, underrated. It's going to be a little interesting. Hopefully it's not disappointing. So for overrated, we have vintage sealed. For underrated, we have vintage sealed. So I wanted to talk about this. Kind of, it's a video and a video type deal. Really wanted to just speak freely. Hopefully for not too long. Hopefully you don't get bored. But speak freely about this situation with the sealed product. Because I think there's a lot to break down with the inorganic activity and also the issue with supply and this idea of a 10K threshold that I want to talk about. So I think vintage sealed product is overrated because there is a lot of inorganic processing. There are the raffles. There are this game. I don't even know what they're calling them right now on Facebook. It's like a live thing where there's like a game. You're gambling basically. But people show you what you're going to get. But the problem I have with it is that process is inorganic, and it creates interest out of an inorganic thing. Also, legally speaking, I know this is like super serious, but legally speaking, you can't do that. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Like, raffles are not supposed to be a thing. It's just no one cares about Pokemon. It's so low cost and negligible. It's never going to be prosecuted. But that's why certain areas, or all areas outside of Vegas, it's very strict to do any type of raffle, gambling process, game that people are calling it. It is just gambling at the end of the day. But yeah, it is inorganic. However, it's expediting the supply of this stuff off the market immediately. None of this stuff is holding right now. And that's where the underrated aspect comes in. There's not enough available supply. There's just not enough. So when people talk bubbles, everyone's like, oh, it's in a bubble right now. Sealed products in a bubble. You need an unexamined variable that people are truly missing. And sure, you can throw as much as you want the inorganic aspect. I don't like it, but it's not enough to create a bubble. All it's doing is expediting the process of supply. And the problem is because we have a finite amount of supply with sealed product, there's no magic bullet here where you can say, like the housing market, for example, oh wait, yeah, you can just build a house. I can't just 3D print a fossil box. You can't just 3D print a new WotC box. It's literally finite. And I would say there's definitely little treasure troves of WotC boxes here and there. There's businesses that probably still have a sizable amount of boxes, which I always mention that, but they currently aren't on the market. And that's the differential there. So there's not enough supply as it is right now to neutralize this inorganic demand or this inorganic process of expediting the product off the market. Also, this $10,000 threshold is I think is where all these boxes will hit. I think if you told me right now, let's say, I pick any box, Rocket, Jungle, Gym, any box, Neo Gen, anyone, and you said, oh, it's over 3,000. My blood pressure is going to stay the same. Oh, it's over 5,000. Chilling. It's over 7,000. Still calm. Once it gets to 10,000, anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 is all the same for me for this type of product in this context. It's all the same for me. I don't have much of a dog in the fight. I don't have a huge position on sealed product, but I don't have any surprise, shock, anything in me that if it goes from 1,000 to 10,000, it's all the same in my opinion. In this circumstance of unavailability, these numbers don't matter. Once it gets to 10,000, there is a pause though. In my experience, 10,000 is like that price point where you're like entering the deep waters. It's like, oh, we're getting serious now. We're going to spend 5 figures. So you see it with the boxes like Skyridge, Neo Destiny, and what you see usually is it hits the 10,000 or it flirts with it. People are cautious. They're like, okay, is it proven? Can I get some data? Can someone just hug me and make me feel comfortable about this move? That's what you see. You see it pause a bit, and here we are with Skyridge, already at 14K. That's what you see is a pause at 10K. I see it with trophy cards all the time. I see people who are like, ooh, I could do 9,999, but I don't know if I could do 10,001 cents. There's this psychological thing there at $10,000. So I think that's where these boxes will hit. And again, I think it's a pause. I don't think it's a permanence. I don't think it's going to stay there for good. I just think it'll pause and people are going to be like, okay, did someone else do this? Okay, did someone else test the water yet? It'll be caution, but I don't think it's going to be something that deters people overall. Especially when you have these processes, as much as I don't like them, you have people taking a box that might sell for, like perfect example, Neo Gen, someone was trying to sell it for like 3K, couldn't get a buyer, opened it up, sold the packs at a price average almost 1,000 above the 3K price point. And I get that. Like, if you break a box down, there's more people in the buyer pool of packs. Mentioned that before. When I said packs were underrated, here we are. Here it is. If you bought any packs back then, they all went up. So there you go. And it's because of that price category. Just like with the Ancient Muse and Lipstick. There's always someone buying in that price range. I remember saying about Base Unlimited. I'm just patting myself on the back here as much as I can. I remember saying in a previous Patreon video months ago, I said, I don't know why Base Unlimited packs, they were underrated. I was like, I don't know why they're not $100. Here we are, they're $100. Because of that discretionary income. Pro tip, discretionary average income per month for adults is $1,500. That's why your iPhones and those type of goods are priced that way, because they sell that way. So, again, any of these packs hitting that price point of $100, that could be a college kid, that could be a 16-year-old. That could be an 18-year-old doing a part-time job. You're hitting everybody at that price point. So when people open these boxes and break them down to the packs, I get it. Makes sense. They're making more money because they're spreading it out. But this 10K threshold is where it is for those boxes. I don't see that as a finish line. I see it as a pause, but it's something to consider. I think you have a little bit of time when it starts to get to the 10K threshold. It happened with the first ed base box. Now it's almost laughable. I remember when first edition base was like around 10,000, Rusty TCA Gaming was one of the first to pull the trigger from, I think it was Collector's Cash at the time, and they gave him a guarantee because he wanted to open it, and they said, if you open it and it's fake, we'll refund you. He opened it, and of course everything was fine, but the 10,000 price at that time, like years ago, was the first one to do it, and everyone's like, oh my god, $10,000, and now everybody would like punt a baby to pay $10,000, for a first edition base box. So again, that example's existed for a long time. Whenever you get to those new thresholds, especially in Pokemon, because it's lower capital, Yeah, I think you have a wider range of capital spent on the low end, but you don't have as many big whales like in Magic and sports. So the 10K can be intimidating because it's uncharted territory, but this is a pattern that's been true for years. I experienced it first, the first edition base box. You'll see it again with all this stuff. Neo Destiny. You saw it with Legendary. We're already through it with Sky Ridge. And I think that's just one it's going to be for the scarcer, more popular sets. And of course, you always have the aggregate for the more available and or less popular sets. So that's what I have for overrated, underrated. At the end of the day, there is not enough available supply right now to neutralize what's happening for Vintage Sealed. Again, I don't have a big dog in the fight. It's just what it is. Of course, for me, it'd be great if they all went to 1,000. Maybe that's one thing to end with here, is that let's do a hypothetical example where the economy just disintegrates and everything gets cut in half. I would break the button on my keyboard on my computer buying all the boxes at half of what they are today. I mean, it's such an obvious purchase. I don't really like sealed product that much because it's boring, but it's something where there's just never going to be enough supply. So there you go, guys. That's everything I have for this month, as usual. Hopefully it was useful. Again, I'm always going to say this, so get ready for it every time. Thank you for the support. Patreon's the only reason I'm still making videos. It'd be much easier for me to keep this to myself and keep my sales data to myself, but I try to be as candid and open as I can, and hopefully that's useful for you guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You know the deal. I'll see you in another 31 days. Till next time, guys.